Welcome back to Almost a True Crime Podcast, a product of Bitch Pack Media. We are your hosts, Taryn and Madison. Listener discretion is advised due to the mature content and the amount of cuss words we say. You've been warned.
Hey guys.
What is up?
Welcome back.
To another riveting episode. Remember when I said that one might be kind of short and I completely lied?
Yes. I don't trust either of our judgment.
No.
Because sometimes I'm like, this is going to be so long, and it's 36 minutes. Like, it's just, I never fucking know.
But you know what? Now I feel a lot better.
Estimating was never my fucking forte.
I feel a lot better.
Distance, time, temperature.
I know part 3 is going to be short. So, after 2 long parts, maybe you'll be
nice,
okay.
Short and sweet wrap up at the end.
This part will probably be just as long as the other one. Because we're just getting started. We won't be talking as much.
Let's dive the fuck in.
Okay, so we left off with the Branch Davidians are being heavily looked into by the ATF, and they finally get a search warrant.
The ATF, bitch. Since anarchy.
The
ATF was always a fucking nuisance.
Wow,
this is what they were doing, though.
Yeah, this is...
Like, wait a second. They were breaking the law.
If we look into
They are bad guys.
They are... hoarding weapons, selling drugs.
I love them.
Me too. Hottest man alive. Top 5. Charlie Hunnam is sexy.
Dude. Oh, there's nothing funnier than when I thought I was going to be hysterical when you posted a picture of Jax and Opie, and I posted a picture in the comments of the Eiffel Tower. I let it stay up there for 2 seconds, and then I deleted it.
No,
I'm like, no, I'm not doing this.
That's
because I knew your mom wasn't going to understand it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I don't have it in me to explain that to her.
Is this something you're comfortable explaining out loud?
Nope. Okay. So I deleted it. Anyways.
Okay, so the ATF, they originally wanted to raid Mount Carmel on March 1st, 1993. However, they claim they moved it up to February 28th, 1993 because...
literally one day before.
One day before, threw them all off. Because the Waco Tribune, which had that paywall that I scammed, had published a series of articles about David Koresh called The Sinful Messiah. Oh. That basically detailed every wrong thing going on inside that compound.
Oh, Jesus.
The child brides, the polygamy, the statutory rape, and it included a call to action from authorities. So, basically, all of this is happening right here in Waco.
Why you need to fucking do something?
Why aren't you doing anything about it?
Damn.
So the ATF had desperately tried to stop these from being published. By
also, does that, they have a rat amongst them?
Yeah.
Who's telling all of this information?
All this info? So the ATF is like, please don't do this. You're going to, we already have this whole plan and you're going to fuck with it if you put all this shit out there. So they kept pushing the article back because the ATF kept pushing the date of their raid back. And eventually the ATF couldn't give a date anymore. They're like, we don't know when it's going to happen. So the paper was like, well, fuck it. We're publishing it then. They waited 3 weeks and you have less information than before. Sorry, not sorry. So they published this whole thing about what's going on in Waco, how terrible it is.
Can you imagine reading that?
No.
As a community member?
And have never heard of it before because...
Holy fuck.
David from the music store?
Why is nothing happening about... Yeah, David from the music store. David, the one in the band?
God rocks.
No.
So yeah, this all comes out. And the ATF is like, fuck. Because now the Branch Davidians know.
Yeah.
They're being looked at in a weird way. So now the ATF has to actually do something. And on top of that, the ATF lost something extremely important, which comes up all the time. They have lost the element of surprise.
Yes.
Apparently, a reporter had gotten wind that the raid was going on and was going to film it for the news. He's like, I heard about this thing going down at the Mount Carmel Center. I'm going to go film it. On his way to the compound, he was ahead of the ATF. He was beating the ATF there. He asked a passing mailman for directions to Mount Carmel because there was going to be some type of law enforcement action and a possible shooting. The mailman that he asked was David Koresh's brother-in-law.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
So he promptly headed to the compound to warn his dad, Perry Jones, who is Rachel Jones's dad, that the feds were coming. He's like, I just passed a reporter on the street, and the jig is up. All the ATF wanted to do was ensure that when they got there, the Davidians were surprised, therefore unarmed. You can't lose the element of surprise to a compound that you know has several automatic weapons.
Yes.
Lost it immediately. So Perry pulls David from Bible study to tell him all of this. Like, my son passed a mailman. Or he passed a reporter. They're on their way. David heads back into the Bible study. And this is when David turns to Robert Rodriguez, who still thinks he's undercover.
Oh.
Robert Rodriguez thinks he's got it all figured out. David
college student.
Yes. So he looked at David and he said, "The kingdom of God is at hand, Robert." And he walked to the window and looked out and he said, "They're coming, Robert. The time has come."
Oh my God.
And Robert,
oh my God. Shit in his fucking pants.
Yeah. Robert is shocked that, one, David knows about the raid because he shouldn't. And obviously Robert knows that the raid is coming. And he's shocked that David knows who he is. He's like processing all of this shit.
It's like, you mean to tell me
I wasn't
you've been onto this the whole time?
So Robert tries to make an excuse to leave. He says he has breakfast plans. He goes for the door, but other people start coming in at the same time, so he can't get out. I don't think they're blocking him, but like he can't leave. There's like way too many people.
A lot happening.
Yeah. So David goes up to him. He shakes his hand and he says, "Good luck, Robert." And,
oh no.
Yeah. And Robert said, "What do you mean?" And David said, "You know what I mean. We know they're coming, Robert. It's up to you now." So I think he's saying, like, you can stop this. You've been living here. Not living there, but you've been coming to like our sermons. You know what we're about. Yeah. You can tell them to not do this. It's literally up to you. You're the only one who can stop this.
Oh my God, that's so fucking scary.
Rodriguez drove. It's a really crazy part of the show too, because this part is in there.
I'm a fucking nervous wreck right now.
Robert drove to the nearby undercover house, which the ATF had rented 2 months earlier.
They like let him leave.
Yes. Oh. David let him leave. Everything he didn't. That's the big thing about this is David doesn't make anyone stay, allegedly. So Robert leaves. He's blinking his headlights as he races down the road, like trying to get anyone's attention to not do this. Like you can't do this today anymore. He scolded the agents inside for leaving the windows open in broad daylight. He said you could see the camera lens all the way from Mount Carmel. Like, we have blown this completely. He phoned Special Agent in Charge Chuck Sarabin, who was operational commander for the raid, and reported that David Koresh knew an ATF raid was coming. He thought Sarabin would understand and would call off the raid. He's like, this is like the one thing we can't do. We can't have them know this is happening. Sarabin asked what the people inside were doing when he left, and Robert Rodriguez said they were praying. Oh my God. ATF Director Stephen E. Higgins and Ronald K. Noble, Assistant Secretary of the Treasury for Law Enforcement, each said that the raid was not to have been conducted if there were any indication the element of surprise had been lost, because they are heavily armed. Mm-hmm. Rodriguez later gives a sworn statement that David Koresh was aware of the raid, and he said he was prepared to resist, and Rodriguez passed that knowledge up to the appropriate channels, and the raid was confirmed anyway. So this should have been stopped right here.
Yes. No-win situation.
No.
Already. Nope. There is absolutely 0% element of surprise.
You can see what's going to happen here. I think a big thing about this warrant was it was going to expire. So I think they would have had to reapply. And in my opinion, they had built all of this up to be this huge thing, and they want to look good. They're like, we want to be the ones to bust this wide open.
Heroes.
The public knows about it now. Like, we're going to do this today. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. The public is like, what the fuck is going on up in here? We just read about this in the paper.
The Waco Tribune.
Like, you have to do something. Damn.
So I think the pressure was them.
All fucked.
Larry Lynch, who was 61, was the lieutenant at the McLennan County Sheriff's Office. He's now the county sheriff. He said, I was at the staging area that morning when one of the ATF supervisors ran in and said, let's go, let's go. They know we're coming. So like trying to do it faster now. Instead of calling it off, they're like, we need to like go as quick as possible before they can like get all their shit together. Mm-hmm. Bill Buford was the resident agent in charge of the ATF's Little Rock, Arkansas office, whose agents, along with those from the New Orleans office, were called in to assist. This is a huge thing.
Yeah.
He is now the bomb squad commander for the Arkansas State Police. He said, I remember thinking, what do you mean they know we're coming? Once we knew the element of surprise had been lost, we should have called it off. He said, in hindsight, I wish that I had said, no, I'm not taking my team. He said, I probably would have been fired, but knowing what I know now, I would have loved to have been fired for making that decision.
Literally, they could be posted up with grenades. Just anything. Ready to fucking rock your shit.
You have a whole investigation about how dangerous they are. And you're going to willingly go into that. No.
Stupid idiots.
He said, as I was getting people to put their gear on, I had a bad feeling. I asked, What do you mean? They know we're coming. Are they getting ready for us? He was told that all the Davidians were in the chapel praying, because that's what Robert Rodriguez said. His logic was, well, if they're all in the chapel, maybe we can still get there and cut the men off from their guns. Like, we know that they keep their guns in their living quarters, under their beds. Like, maybe we can still catch them at church. He didn't know that it had been 45 minutes since Robert Rodriguez had said that. Like,
time has passed. They're done praying. They're preparing.
A full hour has passed. So then David tells a select group of men to arm themselves and set themselves up in defensive positions, and that the women and children have to go to their rooms. David told everyone that they would talk to the agents first, see what was up, and then they would go from there depending on the actions of the ATF. Like, listen, we're not going guns blazing, but if they come at us,
we're going to feel this shit out,
crazy,
and then
feel free.
What needs to be done will be done.
Exactly. ATF arrived at 9:45 a.m. in SWAT gear and several different cars. I didn't put it in here, but like a bunch of fucking cars. And like they tried to disguise themselves, so they're like in cattle trucks.
Okay, well, the jig is fucking up at this point. Like, what?
Oh. So David Koresh dialed 911. After consulting the police, the operator advised him that federal agents were coming. He should step outside and surrender. He hung up. As the agents inched closer to the front of the building, the door opened. David stepped out. He was unarmed. He was holding his left hand upright. He said, "What's going on? There are women and children in here." What happened next is the equivalent of the shot heard around the world.
What?
Somebody shot. Nobody knows who.
What?
The ATF maintained that they were shot at first, and the Davidians maintained that they were shot at first. Nobody knows. Either way, all hell breaks loose immediately.
What?
There are rumors. There are rumors that the first shot was an ATF agent accidentally shooting themselves while scaling the roof to get to like the roof. Like he was climbing a ladder and his gun went off and he shot himself in the foot. But
the second
they're both prepared for, like, we know.
Oh my God. Like, if we're under attack, we got to fight back.
The ATF knows that the Branch Davidians will kill them, and the Branch Davidians know the ATF will kill them. So one shot and everyone just starts shooting everyone.
Holy fuck.
David Koresh was immediately shot in the stomach.
Oh my God.
Within 1 minute, several people were shot, and Wayne Martin, a Branch Davidian, called 911. He said, "There are 75 men around our building shooting at us. Tell them there are children and women in here and to call it off." Larry Lynch, who I said earlier, of the county sheriff's department, was completely unaware of what was unfolding. He came to the phone. He said, "I hear gunfire. What is going on?" Martin then tells the sheriff that they are under attack and to please call it off. So the Davidians are saying, please stop. They're making all of these phone calls like, just tell them to stop and we'll stop. While this is happening, people are being shot left and right. An ATF agent was shot to death while trying to enter the west side of the building. Helicopters were flying overhead to divert attention away from the ATF. So they had like planned this diversion.
Yeah.
But the helicopters are being shot at.
Oh my God.
So the helicopters have to fly away and land. On the east side of the compound, agents brought out 2 ladders and set them against the side of the building. They then climbed onto the roof to secure it to reach David's room and the location where they believed the weapons were stored. On the west slope of the roof, 3 agents reached David's window and were crouching beside it when they came under fire. 1 agent was killed and another wounded. The 3rd agent climbed over the peak of the roof and joined other agents attempting to enter the armory. The window was smashed, a flashbang stun grenade was thrown in, and 3 agents entered the armory. When another tried to follow them, the Davidians started shooting through the wall, hitting him. He was able to reach the ladder and slide to safety. An agent fired his shotgun at Branch Davidians until he was hit in the head by return fire and killed. Inside the armory, the agents killed a Branch Davidian and discovered an ass ton of weapons. They found everything they thought they were looking for. Mm-hmm. But they were immediately shot at. 2 were wounded. As they escaped, the 3rd agent laid down covering fire so they could try and escape, killing a Branch Davidian while doing that. As he made his escape, he hit his head on a wooden support beam and fell off the roof. He did end up surviving, but like, how annoyed would you be?
Seriously, that's what it is?
I hit my head.
I hit my head and fell down.
An agent outside provided them with covering fire, but was shot by a Branch Davidian and killed instantly.
Jesus Christ.
Dozens of...
Oh my God, why? Like, someone stop.
But they can't.
Yeah, it's too far now. Everyone's shooting everyone.
1 shot, 1 gunshot. If someone wouldn't have accidentally shot their gun, this would have never happened.
Oh my fucking God.
Dozens of ATF agents took cover, many behind Branch Davidian vehicles because they did have a bunch of cars. Kept shooting at the Branch Davidians. The number of ATF wounded increased, and an agent was killed by gunfire from the compound as agents were firing at Branch Davidians perched on top of the water tower that they had. While this is all going on, David is on the phone with 911 trying to get everyone to stop shooting. David redialed 911, noting that he had been trying to call in. He's like, I've been trying to call you. They said, this is who? He said, this is David Koresh, Mount Carmel Center. We're being shot up all out here. You killed some of my children. We told you we wanted to talk. There's a bunch of us dead and a bunch of you guys dead. Now that's your fault. Were there like
women and children involved in all of this too?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
So Lynch is like, let's try and resolve this. Tell me this now. You have casualties. How many casualties? Do you want to work something out? ATF is pulling back. We're trying to. And David's like, well, why didn't you do that first? He said,
seriously?
He said, I'm just handling communications. Like, I can't answer that, David. I don't know what is going on. David said, well, let me tell you something. In our great country here, the United States, God has given us a rich history of patriotism. We're not trying to be the bad guys. So this whole time, Lynch is trying to reach Kavanaugh, who was Sarabin's right-hand man, or anyone with authority at the ATF command post, but they would not respond.
Oh, my God. Yeah, because they're a little fucking busy.
They're busy. In the show, I think they do it by having the cameraman have a phone.
Oh.
And that's how they stop it. But, so that line gets disconnected. Martin, who called 911 first, came back on the phone, and he said, I'm under fire. Lynch said, are you hurt? Martin said, I'm okay. Lynch said, Wayne, you need to stop firing. Do you hear me, Wayne? Cease firing. After a long pause with only the sound of gunfire, Martin came back on and said, I have a right to defend myself. They started shooting. They started shooting first. There are women and children in here. Lynch said, let's try and resolve this. I'm trying to make contact with the forces out there. Off the phone, Lynch hears Martin say, stand, don't return fire. So Lynch can hear Martin trying to get everyone.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, let's just stop and see if they stop because we don't know what we're doing. And then a bunch of gunfire happens. And then Martin says they're attacking us again, even after trying to stop. And Lynch says, no, they're not. And Martin said, yes, they are. Don't call me a liar. He's like, I'm living it. They're not stopping. The shooting took place for 2 hours.
Oh, my God.
It started to slow down after 45 minutes, and it really only stopped because the ATF had started to run out of ammunition. And it's not clear if they ever had plans to stop at all, had they not run out of ammunition. Sheriff Lynch did say that he was able to contact the ATF eventually and negotiate a ceasefire. So he was like, listen, we all just need to stop. Sheriff Harwell states in William Gadzecki's documentary Waco, The Rules of Engagement, that the ATF agents withdrew only after they were out of ammunition. ATF agent Chuck Hustmeyer later wrote, about 45 minutes into the shootout, the volume of gunfire finally started to slacken. Started to slacken. We were running out of ammunition. The Davidians, however, had plenty. So they know.
Yeah.
Like, we can run out of bullets, but they're not going to run out of bullets.
Like, if we quit, they can kill us.
100%. In all, 4 ATF agents, Steve Willis, Robert Williams, Todd McKeon, and Conway Charles LeBlue, had been killed during the firefight. Another 16 had been injured. After the ceasefire, the Branch Davidians allowed the ATF dead and wounded to be evacuated and held their fire during the ATF retreat. The 5 Branch Davidians killed in the raid were Winston Blake, Peter Gent, Peter Hipsman, Perry Jones, and J. Dean Wendell. 2 were killed at the hands of Branch Davidians after having been wounded. Mercy killings. Their bodies were buried on the grounds. Nearly 6 hours after the 11:30 a.m. ceasefire, Michael Schroeder was shot dead by ATF agents who alleged he fired a pistol at agents as he attempted to re-enter the compound with Woodrow Kendrick and Norman Allison.
This is like when they do just like a quick break in like a war.
Yes!
Bury their dead.
Yeah.
Let's all like just take a breather real quick.
Time out.
Like, why are you not using that time to, like,
do anything else?
Figure some shit out?
No.
Holy shit.
So, Perry Jones, who was Rachel's dad, did end up dying. J. Dean Wendell was a woman who she was shooting defensively and she was shot in the head. She was, like, found shooting her gun. So, basically, it's a shit show.
Yes.
What's important to remember is the Branch Davidians are end-of-the-world type of people. Yeah. David had been telling them for years that this would happen, that they would be confronted and they need to protect themselves. Yeah. So to sum up these Branch Davidians, this is literally the scripture coming to life. This is what David
the fight for their eternity.
This is the end of the world. They're coming for them.
Oh my God.
I don't believe they would have fired at the ATF agents unless they fired first.
I don't think they would have either because he went out there. He was fully ready to like, let's have a conversation. Unarmed.
Yeah. It just doesn't really seem like their style. Like
David,
David,
was he like, oh, I'm going to walk out here and then someone else take a shot?
No,
because you know how
so.
that's going to end. He's not sacrificing himself. Are you fucking kidding?
No, and he just seems like the kind of narcissist who, like...
He thinks he can fix this. This isn't that big of a deal.
He thinks he could de-escalate the ATF.
Yes. Like, listen.
Without shooting.
We know what you think is going on.
Yeah.
I'll tell you this much, and then that'll be that.
Yes, that's what I think.
This doesn't need to be this kind of an issue,
I don't think
guys.
he thinks a shootout is, like, their only option.
No. I think he very much could like appear totally normal and sane of mind to them.
100%.
Very different than like Charles Manson.
Exactly.
Like he's still socializing in society. He's still like.
I think he could appear respectful.
Yes.
I think he could appear like he respects them. Like we're all just doing our own thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you understand why this is so dicey.
This is weird. This is wild.
So, the standoff. So because federal agents had been killed, the FBI has to come take over.
Yeah.
Anytime a federal agent dies, that's the FBI's whole thing now. So Jeff Jamar, head of the Bureau's San Antonio field office, is in charge as site commander. At this point, he also brings in the HRT, which is the hostage rescue team.
Oh, not human resources.
Not human resources team.
Oh, okay.
The hostage rescue team. I don't know if they genuinely believe David is holding these people hostage or if they want to make it seem like he is to justify what is surely going to be all over the news of the ATF shooting women and children.
Yeah. These people are there of their own free will. They can come and go as they please.
Not hostages. But on the news, that looks good. Like, we're trying to rescue all these women and children.
Yeah, they're under this fucking
yes.
news. Oh, my God.
So at first,
wow.
David has full access to the outside world. Their phone still works. They're able to make calls out. So David does contact several news stations and gives interviews about what's going on. After the FBI catches on, they cut off the access to the phone. So somehow they're the only people that are able to communicate with David. Like, David can't use the phone for anything else, which I don't know how technology like that works. But
something with satellites.
So the phone,
towers and things.
Phone only works from like the ATF outside the door to inside now. So the FBI thinks they have a breakthrough. When David tells them, listen, I'll surrender and I'll send my people out if you release a recording of me on national news. So like, you know what? Fine. Whatever. In a 58-minute audio tape delivered to Dallas radio station KRLD at midday, David promised to leave the premise without engaging in further bloodshed. He said, I, David Koresh, agree upon the broadcast of this tape to come out peacefully with all people immediately. David's voice was strong and preacherly. There was no indication when the bulk of the tape was made, but introduction was clearly that it was written like after the raid had taken place. Like this wasn't some old thing he had laying around. He said, we made an agreement with the ATF agent that if I was allowed national coverage, all of the people here at the facility here would give ourselves out to you, give ourselves over to the world. This is what I promised, and this is what I keep. Sometimes rambling and taking considerable time to explain his religious beliefs, David intimated the final outcome would not necessarily be peaceful. He said, I'm sure you are aware of the very serious thing that we are in right now. Should I be scared? Should I be concerned? I'm really concerned about the lives of my brethren here, and even more importantly, about all those in the world. At one point, he identified himself as the Lamb of God. He said the role of the Lamb of God was to fight God's enemies. He said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. So he releases this rambling tape. It's just rambling. None of it makes a whole lot of sense.
Right.
There's no linear type of... And then he just doesn't actually surrender.
Oh.
He's like, actually, never mind. At the McLennan County Sheriff's...
Well, but also, why would you trust any of it at this point?
Why would any of you trust any of you?
Like, I don't...
You should have known he wasn't going to surrender, and David should have known.
Yeah.
That,
they weren't going to
let you go peacefully anyway. A McLennan County Sheriff's deputy who spoke on condition of an anonymity.
Anonymity?
Yes.
Anonymity.
I could feel it coming out wrong, and I couldn't stop it.
Yeah, that was a lot.
Said that officials initially thought they had an agreement with the group to emerge peacefully at about 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. When they failed to materialize, officials believed the group would maybe come out at 1:30 after the tape was broadcast. Okay, so maybe they're waiting to make sure we actually play this on air. Still nothing. And I'm pretty sure that they were fully prepared for him to surrender. They had ambulances out for their people, all of it. They were living in a delusion.
Yes.
David then
Fully.
told negotiators that God had told him to remain in the building and wait. So the FBI is pissed. They're very annoyed with this entire situation. Somehow they are able to convince David to send out a group of children. 19 children were sent out of the compound, ranging from 5 months to 12 years old.
Oh my gosh.
Without their parents, though their parents didn't go. Another big part of this case is the FBI and the investigators were adamant that children were being sexually assaulted and abused in the home.
Well,
It was a big reason why they were able to use the force they used and really take it to the level it got to. Because outwardly, this looks like a cult with some
yes,
guns.
absolutely.
But then they were like, okay, well, I also actually think children are in active danger. So, like, we have to go now for, like, the sake of these children. However, Dr. Bruce Perry, the chief of psychiatry at Texas Children's Hospital, who led the team that cared for the children that got out of the siege at the compound, wrote after a 2-month investigation that the children released from the ranch apocalypse do not appear to have been victims of sexual abuse. However, he noted that while they were not physically abused, he reported they were likely exposed to inappropriate concepts of sexuality and subject to a whole variety of destructive emotional techniques, including shame, coercion, fear, intimidation, humiliation, guilt, overt aggression, and power. And he has maintained that as recent as 2018. Anyway, back to the standoff. On March 7th, the FBI began consulting with Bible scholars Philip Arnold and James Tabor, who studied his transcript of the radio broadcast David did to try and understand what he's really about. Like, what is his actual theology going on here? Maybe we can, like, de-escalate from a way that he would understand. That week, Arnold and Tabor were guests on talk radio programs on Dallas radio stations KRLB and KGBS. David heard the program on the battery-powered radio they have.
You mean like as this is still going on? This is still a standoff.
This is still a standoff.
Jesus
Everyone's
Christ.
still in the house. They're like trying to figure out how to get this to stop. On March 16th, he asked the FBI for permission to discuss the Bible with Arnold directly. The FBI denied the request. The Branch Davidians were given a video camera from the FBI to use. I'm assuming it was something they asked for in negotiations. I don't know why else they would give them one.
Right.
So on March 8th, the 9th day
Here,
of the...
vlog this for us, guys.
Literally, here you go. So on March 8th, the 9th day of the standoff, David sent a tape out to the FBI from his video camera. It showed life around the compound. It allegedly showed his wives and his children. It included messages from him. It also showed that there were actually no hostages. Everyone who was in there because they wanted to be. And there were about 98 people in there still.
Damn.
Because they wanted to be. And they could leave if they wanted to. They just don't want to. David is trying to really show, like, whatever you think this is, it's not. It's not a hostage situation at the very least. ATF, perhaps. Hostage, that's not what's going on here.
Right.
The tape was logged and it showed that it was viewed by the negotiators. However, it wasn't released to the public because they feared it would cause people to have sympathy for the Branch Davidians. They were basically like, okay, well, this doesn't make us look great.
Right.
It's like just a bunch of people in there focused on religion. Like, it's not what we're trying to make it seem like. So we can't have this. So David Thibodeau said there was a period of time when the negotiations were pretty harmonious. He said, I thought the FBI was being reasonable with David considering everything that had happened. Because they really are. They're like, this goes on for a long time. They really put up with a lot. But at a certain point, David Thibodeau said, we realized that their word meant nothing. The negotiators would tell us one thing and the guys in the tanks would do the exact opposite.
Right. Like, it seems like there is a miscommunication here.
It comes up in a couple minutes, I think. One of the other Branch Davidians said the FBI was mooning our women from the tanks, dropping their pants, giving them the finger, all kinds of stuff.
What the fuck?
Yeah. Which they're very religious people. That's not okay. You don't be showing your ass to my wife.
Well, and it's just in general.
Yeah, why?
Maybe not.
As the standoff goes on, David starts to get this idea that he needs to write this religious document, and then he will surrender. He tells them he needs to write the 7 seals, and then he promises this time they will all surrender as long as he can get this done. And half of the FBI is like, finally, yes, do it, whatever. And the other half is like, this is bullshit. Like, you have already promised this before. On April 1st, Arnold and Tabor were interviewed again by radio talk show host Ron Engelman on KGBS to discuss the shit still going on at Mount Carmel. It's been a month. Tabor said that the Apostle Paul wrote much of the New Testament from prison, and in a similar manner, David's message would reach to a wider audience if he surrendered peacefully, even if it meant going to prison. I have no idea if he means this or not, or if he knows that David is listening to the broadcast and, like, trying to get him to surrender. Like, you're your message would mean a lot more if you just came out. On April 4th, however, a tape recording of this broadcast was delivered to David Koresh by his lawyer, Dick DeGuerin. Nice. According to David Thibodeau, David appeared to resonate with the message. Like, it made some sense to him. Like, yeah, maybe I should write this from prison, come out peacefully. It would probably mean a lot more. While all this is going on, the FBI is using some very questionable tactics to try and get people out of this compound. Oh, Jesus. Starting on March 9th, the FBI started cutting the electricity off intermittently. This pisses David off, so they turn it back on. This goes on for days, and then eventually on Friday, March 12th, FBI orders the power to be off indefinitely.
What the fuck?
Because Jamar wanted those inside the compound to experience the same wet, cold night as the tactical personnel outside.
Okay, well, we're not telling you to be doing this.
Yeah, you could leave.
Wow, I'm really...
You're flip-flopping.
Yeah.
The Davidians say the power shut off is a huge, huge setback, causing some of the Davidians to change their mind about coming out. The justification for the power, like I said, they just want to make them extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah, like, you actually don't give a shit about us at all.
No.
This is, like, for you.
Yes. They also...
This isn't because you think, like, we're being held.
No. Also, cutting the power was supposed to take away some control from David, or make it appear like he's not as in control as he thinks he is. Around March 14th, when it gets dark, the FBI started sleep deprivation tactics. So they were shining bright lights into these windows at night. Bright. Like, you could see it from miles away. They had massive speakers blaring jet planes, pop music, Buddhist chanting, the screams of rabbits being slaughtered.
This is like torture. Like, yes. Cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah, that was like a big thing of like, is this legal?
Yeah.
And I think they had to stop the Buddhist chanting thing because I think they got like a legitimate complaint from like the Dalai Lama. Like, someone was like, why are you
be using this
our shit for torture?
Yeah.
They had armored cars driving around the house, running over their fences, running over their cars. It ran over some of their graves, which both the Davidians and the negotiators were pissed about. So they're like not in, like, the negotiators are trying really hard. And the FBI is just not. They're doing whatever the fuck they want. Also, they have very little water, if any, at this point. They had large reserve water tanks that were stored on the roof, and those were obviously shot at a bunch of times.
Oh, yeah.
So their water supply is, like, depleted. They were surviving off of rainwater they were catching, and, like, those military freeze-dried meals and stuff, because they can't go get groceries. So they're, like, getting into their end-of-the-world stash. They have no water. So David sends out 11 more Branch Davidians. However, no children. And it's simply because the children don't want to go.
Fuck no! Why? That doesn't seem like a safe, welcoming environment.
And it's driving the FBI insane. Like, they don't understand why these children won't come out. They hate it.
Because you're torturing them right now.
Yeah, and they saw the first group of children go out with, like, a group of women, and they were immediately separated from the women, and the women were arrested. Like, okay, well, no, actually, no, thank you.
Cool on that.
Not going to do that. Retired FBI agent Gary Nosner was the negotiation coordinator at Waco from March 1st to March 24th. From February 28th to March 23rd, a total of 21 children and 14 adults came out as a result of his negotiations. So he was doing very good. Mm-hmm. Yet, whenever adults cooperated and came out, the remaining Branch Davidians were punished. FBI cuts off their electricity. They run over their cars. They shine lights in their rooms at night. When Nosner protested these tactics, who was the one responsible for getting all these people out, he was removed from the case. They're like, okay, well, you actually can't work here anymore.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see how far you guys got then.
Good fucking luck. David Thibodeau said that scripture talks about how in the latter days the beast will war against the people of God and destroy them, or basically exactly what was happening to us. Everything David had been teaching us was actually taking place. It did seem like prophecy was being fulfilled. Doyle, another Branch Davidian, said we had hardly any water for bathing. We were all getting pretty rank. He said we had to use 5-gallon buckets to dispose of our waste because we couldn't go out to our outhouses. He said we were getting maybe 2 hours of sleep a night because of everything they were doing. David had said if I had been on the outside while this was going on, I would have been the first person to say these people are nuts. But why are they staying in there? It's time to come out. He said, but having been there, I can say that I challenge any American family to think about what they would do if they were invaded by a hostile force. If tanks pulled up outside their house and had armed men inside, would they send their kids out? No. Probably not. The FBI is also concerned that they are planning a mass suicide in the compound. They're comparing David to like Jim Jones of Jonestown. The FBI has a report on how they reached that conclusion and the evidence for and against it. They reported several former compound residents and relatives of current compound residents spoke of the Davidians' devotion to David and their desire to kill or die for him. One former resident who left the standoff told investigators that on March 2nd, David intended to leave the compound with his followers and commit mass suicide until David changed his mind when God told him to wait. Another former resident stated that she had heard the members speak numerous times about suicide. Former David wife Dana Akamoto said that if David were to die before his followers, everyone inside the compound would kill themselves. Several other former compound members reported that mass suicide was not possible, and they and those still inside the compound would not hesitate to die for Crush. They're like we're not going to kill ourselves, but if he dies before us, like, or anything, like, we will die for him, but we're not all just going to kill ourselves.
Right.
They also reported that David expected to die in a confrontation with the government. Which, seems like a reasonable...
I would too, also, if I were him at this point.
However, most of the people who exited the compound did tell the FBI that there were no plans for mass suicide. Several relatives of Davidians also reported that, based on their knowledge of the cult, mass suicide would be inconsistent with their religious beliefs. So, like, everyone coming out of the compound is saying, like, that's not what's, like, going on in there.
Right.
We would not do that. They also have experts weigh in, and they all sort of reach different conclusions, but they do agree that the way David was acting and the general beliefs of the Davidians, that suicide just did not seem like something they would be doing.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like we're all going to drink this Kool-Aid and just go down together.
No. Like, we can argue what the Branch Davidians think all we want, but at the end of the day, we can all probably
to this point,
agree.
it did not seem like that's what they want. That's not how they... Especially because of what they believed in.
Exactly.
They're doing all of this because they think they're, like, putting up the good fight.
Yes.
So they're not just going to kill themselves and end it.
No.
Yeah, no.
So the longer this goes on, the more difficult David is becoming. He is convinced he is the second coming of Christ and has been commanded by his Father in heaven to remain in the compound. And then from April 5th to April 13th, David goes radio silent on the FBI. He refuses to speak to them over the Passover holiday. So there is, like, no negotiations going on for, like, a week. And they are sick of it. The FBI is so sick of this. It's been over a month. They really thought this was going to be over in one day. I read somewhere that the ATF agents booked a tea time for that afternoon because he figured he'd be done by that afternoon. He's like, I'm busy in the morning and then I will be free.
Golf after this.
Yes, and it's been over a month. The FBI is so desperate, they've debated taking David Koresh out with a sniper through the window. They're like, we have to be able to do something other than whatever this is.
Right.
On April 14th, David released a letter to his lawyer that would prove to be his last communication with the outside world. In it, he claimed to be writing down an interpretation of the 7 seals of the Book of Revelation, promising to exit the compound as soon as it was completed. He said, I want the people of this generation to be saved. I am working day and night to complete my final work of the writing of these seals. I thank my Father. He has finally granted me the chance to do this. It will bring new light and hope to many, and they will not have to deal with me, the person. I will demand the first manuscript of seals to be given to you. Many scholars and religious leaders will wish to have copies for examination. I will keep a copy with me. As soon as I can see that people like Jim Tabor and Phil Arnold have a copy, I will come out, and then you can do your thing with this beast. Now, like I said earlier, the FBI is basically split in half. Half of them are like, all right, let's let him do this. It can all be done. We'll be done. The other half of the FBI is like, yeah, fucking right. It has been 50 days. He said he was going to come out so long ago after we let him do something else very fucking weird, and he still didn't do that. So I don't know why you think he's going to do it this time. 50 days.
This is insane.
It's crazy. I did not know all of this happened.
If you're a woman, you're almost about to have your second period while this is going on. That's how 28. That's how I'm equating this.
Can you imagine?
Imagine all this shit.
No.
What the fuck? 50 days? How are they surviving?
Rainwater and freeze-dried military meals.
Holy fuck. They're probably all so skinny.
Probably.
Not that that's what this is about.
So, The idea for tear gas was presented around April 7th.
I'm about to take a shot to wake myself up. My eyes are getting a little sleepy.
I will make you a coffee on your way home.
Yes, you
But
will.
we have like 40 minutes left of
That's fine.
total episodes.
That's why I will do this.
Okay. So the idea for tear gas was presented around April 7th.
Tear gas.
HRT Commander Richard
There's
Rod.
still children in there.
Yes. Yes. HRT Commander Richard Rogers proposes a tear gas plan. April 9th, the FBI finalizes the plan to use tear gas and seeks newly appointed U.S. Attorney General Janet Reno's approval. Monday, April 12th, at high-level meetings, Sessions, Hubble, and other justice and FBI officials present the tear gas plan to Reno for approval. At first, she repeatedly asks, why now? Why not wait? But then becomes convinced some action is needed. I'm assuming they are really harping on the fact that children are in danger, and there's how they get all this stuff done.
You're the reason the children are in danger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The tear gas plan is presented to Reno not as an all-out assault, but as a tactic whereby gas will be inserted in stages, initially into only one small area of the compound. The goal was to allow the exit through uncontaminated portions of the compound. Reno also asked whether it would be possible to cut off the water supply to the compound. She's like, can we do something else?
I can't believe after 50 days, why would you not withdraw the force?
I don't know. It's clearly not working.
Why would you not, like, go back to the drawing board?
No.
What the fuck?
No.
Dude, this is like a big fail.
Huge.
And the money.
Yep. Over the next couple days, Janet Reno repeatedly asked about the rations the Davidians have. So, like, can we figure out how much food and water they have and how much longer they can even stay in there without us? Like, do we really have to go to a different level? And the FBI ensures her that they have enough provisions to stay in there for a very long time. They're telling Janet Reno they could probably survive a year in there with all of their stuff. And I don't know how it went from their water reserves being shot to now they have, like, years worth of water. But whatever. Rainwater can only go so far, and it's disgusting.
Ugh.
So the FBI is insistent this needs to happen urgently because the children inside are being abused and sexually assaulted.
Oh my God. Okay.
They're like, the children are in danger. They have enough provisions to be in there.
The children! We've been shooting at them.
We've
cut off their water and their
children.
electricity and not letting them sleep. But don't forget about the children.
Yeah. On April 14th, at a meeting in Sessions' office on the tear gas plan, 2 military experts and the Army's Dr. Harry Salem brief Reno detailing what is known about the gas effect on children. It said, although there had been no laboratory tests performed on children relative to the effects of the gas, anecdotal evidence was convincing that there would be no permanent injury. So saying the kids will be fine eventually. Probably
Minus
not.
all this trauma.
Yeah. On April 15th, FBI negotiator Byron Sage, who was the lead negotiator for a really long time, told Associate Attorney General Webster Hubble that negotiations were at a total impasse. He was basically saying, like, we're not getting anywhere anymore after this, I don't think. April 16th, David Koresh revealed that he had finished his manuscript of the 7 Seals and needed the supplies to type it up. Janet Reno rejects the idea of using tear gas and asks for a report on the conditions inside the compound. On April 17th, somehow she approves the tear gas plan after one day of saying no. On April 18th, they presented the plan to the president, who was Bill Clinton at the time, who agreed with the plan but did express concern over the children in the house, but ultimately said, it's up to you. He was like, I don't love the idea of using tear gas on children, but I haven't been out there. So if you think it's up to you. On April 18th, they also delivered the supplies to David to type up the manuscript that he needed.
April 18th. This started on February 28th?
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
So despite the FBI making it seem like they're going with David's plan by giving him all this shit, they were planning the tear gas attack the very next morning. So Waco, as we know it, all comes
See, this is how you don't get anything done.
Yes.
You're lying to them while trying to negotiate.
Absolutely. It's a disaster. I did not know it was this bad.
I knew nothing, and I am floored.
So, Waco, as we know it, all comes to a head on April 19th, very early in the morning. According to Albert Bates, who wrote the article Showtime at Waco, he said the limited plan approved by Janet Reno was to send 2 combat engineering vehicles, they call them CEVs, inside the HRT's concertina wire just before sunrise.
What does that mean?
It's like a tank.
Okay,
Like when you were
that's
saying
what I was
tanks,
thinking.
it's like a tank. So a CEV is a M60 tank, which has been modified with a boom, so like a really long arm, to assist in knocking down walls to throw the gas in the walls.
Oh, So they're
Yes.
going for it.
Yes. Each CEV would be equipped to project CS, which is the tear gas they used, using the Mark V delivery system. 15 1-second bursts per charge, 6 charges per vehicle. Each burst propelled 55 feet by a specially modified flamethrower. There were enough backup materials at the site for 1,800 bursts per vehicle of tear gas. After the CEVs delivered the tear gas, a Bradley vehicle near the building would deliver ferret liquid tear gas rounds into an unfinished construction area near the main structure to deny access to this zone by church members. So they're trying to gas them out. So, like, we're going to gas the main building in this one part to get them to all funnel out of another part, and we have to gas the outbuilding so they don't run into a different building. It was hoped that by introducing tear gas at opposite ends of the compound, church members would be forced out through the front door and surrender. If firing commenced from the compound, the Bradleys would deliver liquid ferret rounds into all windows and openings in the church. So the ferret rounds are like the tiny little of tear gas, not bullets. There were 40 millimeter shells delivered by grenade launchers that could penetrate a wall or a hollow door from 20 yards away. So they're not shooting at them anymore. They're like, if they start shooting at us, just keep throwing the tear gas at them. So they say. The vehicles would then stand down and wait. If all church members failed to exit the church after 48 hours, the CEVs would begin disassembling the church and continuing until all occupants were located.
I mean, 48 hours, how long can you even stay in there with tear gas?
They have gas masks. They do have gas masks, but not for children.
Yeah, okay.
So, like, if they somehow figure out a way to, like, stay in there past this, after 48 hours, we're just going to start knocking the walls down and, like, picking people up and getting them out of there. That was the plan, the original plan approved by Janet Reno, allegedly. Church members who exited the compound and surrendered would be moved in an orderly fashion to a designated area behind the vehicles where they would be searched and turned over to waiting ATF personnel for handcuffing and transport. Children would be escorted to representatives of the Texas Child Welfare Protective Services who would be manning portable shower stalls to wash away the tear gas residues. The children would be given fresh clothing and escorted to a waiting center. An orbiting helicopter with SWAT personnel aboard would apprehend and arrest subjects attempting to flee from the site. The plan called for controlled arrest over a 2-day period. There was no urgency. Like, this is a 2-day operation. We're going to start the tear gas, and over the course of 2 days, I think we can get everyone out of here fine. So what actually happens is at 5:59 a.m., Byron Sage, the FBI's lead negotiator, telephones the Davidians, notifying them of an imminent tear gas assault. Sage reads the message over the loudspeaker, advising the Davidians that they are under arrest and should come out. Clive Doyle, a Davidian, said that woke a few people up and everyone hurried to find gas masks because it's 6 a.m.
Jesus Christ.
A surveillance device audio tape reveals that after the assault started at 6 a.m. on April 19th, Branch Davidians attempted to get FBI agents to repair the telephone line to negotiators, which had been severed as soon as the assault began. So they cut off the phone line. They wanted to tell the agents about the progress they'd made typing up David's commentary on the first seal, but the telephone line to negotiators remained broken, and the assault proceeded.
Which is what they had said, like, he could do.
Yeah, you made it seem like he could do that. Officially, no armed assault was to be made. Loudspeakers were to be used to tell the Branch Davidians that there would be no armed assault and to ask them not to fire on the vehicles. According to the FBI, the HRT agents had been permitted to return any incoming fire, but no shots were to be fired by federal agents on April 19th. David Thibodeau said the tank started moving into position and surrounding the building. Then the loudspeakers came on and a voice said, "It's time to come out with your hands up. The siege is over. David, come out." At 6:02 a.m., 2 FBI combat engineering vehicles, or CEVs, began inserting gas into the compound through spray nozzles attached to a boom. At 6:04 a.m., allegedly, the Davidians start shooting, and the FBI began deploying the Bradley vehicles to insert those ferret rounds through the windows. David Thibodeau later comes out and said in no way did they shoot at them. And when they heard that on the radio that morning, because it was happening live on the radio, David Thibodeau said that he knew that they were all going to die. Because the FBI is just lying now.
Right, they're not even...
justify any force they can use.
Yeah, absolutely.
According to PBS, at 6:31, the HRT reports that the entire building is being gassed.
Jesus Christ. This is like the opposite of what you're supposed to be doing.
Yes, this is not what you were authorized to do. So a half hour later, the entire building is being gassed, even though they were authorized to gas one room to sort of gas people out. Mm-hmm. At about 7 a.m., Reno and her senior advisors go to the FBI Situation Room At 7:30, a CEV breaches the front side of the building on the first floor as it injects gas, and at 7:58 a.m., gas is inserted into the second floor of the back right corner of the building. They're hitting it from everywhere. This is a 2-day operation. It's supposed to be a 2-day operation.
Yeah, no, they're
2 hours.
gassing them out immediately.
Yes. So the FBI calls for more gas from outside Waco, and at 9:20 a.m., 48 more ferret rounds arrive from Houston. So they're already going through all of their shit.
They're giving them no chances.
No. At about 9:30 a.m., with the supply of ferret rounds dwindling, one CEV is having mechanical troubles and high winds are blowing the gas away. So, like, this is all going awry. Another
CEV taking such a turn I never thought it would.
I know.
I had no idea I would feel this way about this.
I know. Another CEV begins enlarging the opening in the middle front of the building to allow Davidians to escape. So, like, knocking down more walls so people can start running out. And a third CEV with a boom, but lacking a gas delivery system, breaches the rear side of the building to create more openings near the back. So neither of these trucks have gas. They're just knocking holes in the wall.
Right.
At about 11 a.m., Washington time, not Waco time, Reno talks to Clinton saying that everything seems to be going well. And she leaves for a judicial conference in Baltimore at 11:30 a.m.
Everything's going well.
Going fine.
I mean, it's going 0% to plan.
Not at all what you told them they could do.
Oh my fucking God.
The CEV without a gas delivery system breached the backside of the compound, concentrating on the back right corner near the warehouse gymnasium. At 11:40 a.m., the last ferret rounds are delivered. At 11:45 a.m., a wall on the rear right side of the building collapses. After more than 6 hours of this tear gas shit, no Branch Davidians have left the building. Sheltering instead in an underground concrete block room, the bunker they called it.
I was figuring they gotta have something going on
within the building, or using gas masks. So there's a bunch of people underground, and who's not underground, they have gas masks. Clive Doyle said no one was leaving for one reason. We didn't trust the FBI. They had told us over and over again that nobody was allowed to come out of the building without setting it up with the negotiating team first. Anyone who violated that rule had gotten a flashbang grenade thrown at them and had the daylight scared out of them. The FBI had told us that their snipers needed advance warning of any movements that we would make. So there was always that threat, if you made one false move, you would die. So, like, we're not just going to start pouring out of here. David Thibodeau said, I honestly felt that I would be shot if I exited the building. I mean, I didn't leave until the wall next to me caught on fire that morning. I could hear my hair crackling. He said, that's when I decided I would rather be shot than burned to death.
Oh my God.
Clive Doyle said the gas looked like this misty kind of stuff and it burned like crazy if you got on your skin. It stung like battery acid. I saw grown men crying from it. Byron Sage, the lead negotiator, said all morning we kept giving specific instructions over the loudspeaker, come out of the front door, turn left, walk down the driveway, come out one at a time. They're like giving them instructions on like how to not be shot, but no one came out. Then the controversy starts. Then after all of that.
That's it?
At 12,
everyone was cool with everything thus far.
Till now. At 12:07 p.m., the FBI claims that the Branch Davidians deliberately set 3 different fires. The Branch Davidians very much deny that they intentionally lit fires and that the fires were an accident and possibly a direct result from the attack. So they're saying, like, we're knocking a bunch of shit over in here and you have gas in the air. Like, you knocked over our lamps and it caused all of these fires. Either way, the entire compound goes up in flames immediately after these fires start.
Oh my God.
Byron Sage said, I looked over at the monitor and I could see what appeared to be the first whiffs of smoke coming out of the south tower. I repeated the same instructions into the mic. Those of you that are still inside, attempt to exit by any means possible. Walk toward the voices. Exit in any fashion that you can.
Oh my God, but like, you don't know what's going to happen once you walk out.
You don't. And these people think it's the end of days.
Oh, Jesus.
And still no one came out. No one. He said it was a sickening feeling. Once I saw the flames, my request became, please, David, don't do this. Don't end it this way. Save your people. Lead them out. Clive Doyle said the tanks had made a hole in the wall of the chapel, and he stood there with David Thibodeau looking out of the tanks, wondering, well, if we jump out, will they shoot us? He said, I don't know.
They could see them standing there?
Yes. He said, I don't know how many seconds of hesitation there were, but as we were standing there deciding what to do, all of this smoke drifted down into the south side of the building. When it reached the hole, it got sucked in and everything went totally black. I couldn't see anything, but I felt this intense heat over my head, like a huge weight that had was pushing me to the ground. He said, I could hear people screaming behind me, and I knew who they were. I recognized their voices.
Wait, who's saying this? David Thibodeau?
Clive Doyle.
Oh, okay.
Who's with David Thibodeau.
Okay.
At that point, David Thibodeau said, I jumped out of the hole, and when I turned around, I saw Clive coming out after me. He was patting his arms because they were on fire. He said, I heard a big explosion behind me, and I saw the building fall in on itself. Byron Sage said, I had to turn my back to the monitor because I needed to remain focused on what I had to do. I kept repeating the instructions over the loudspeaker until 12:35 p.m. when the central tower imploded. Then I called in to the negotiation center. He said, I'll tell you that is one of the most difficult things I have ever had to do because I had to admit that we had failed. He said, I said negotiations officially terminated at 12:35 p.m. He said, I was in a daze. I walked outside and I could feel the heat radiating on my face from 200 yards away. The building was collapsing in on itself and being reduced to about 18 inches of rubble. He said, I stood there and I watched that place burn. I'll never forget the stench and the heat and the magnitude of that moment. Rounds were cooking off and there were explosions every now and then. So like the ammunition was exploding.
Oh my God.
After Clive Doyle and David Thibodeau got out, only 7 more people got out. 9 people were able to get out of the compound. 76 people died and no children made it out. All of the children died.
Oh my God.
That's what I didn't know. I didn't know everyone died. This part is almost done. I'm going to wrap this up real quick.
Holy shit.
Byron Sage, the lead negotiator, said he stayed and helped exhume some of the bodies. He said it was just surreal because he had been talking on the phone to most of these people for 51 days. He had known these people, and now he's getting all of their children's bodies out of here.
This is insane. Oh, man, I wasn't prepared for this.
I know.
This is a lot. This is heavy. Way to ruin my fucking day.
No. Causes of death varied from smoke inhalation, burned alive, being crushed, and about 20 people had gunshot wounds that they assume were mercy killings.
My God, being crushed. Stop it.
David Koresh was found with a gunshot wound to the forehead, and his right-hand man was found with a gunshot wound to the mouth. So they think Steve Schneider shot David
him and then shot himself
as a mercy killing and then shot himself.
Holy fuck.
Some of the children were found shot. A 3-year-old was found with a stab wound to the chest.
Stop it.
It's unclear if that was a mercy killing or if it wasn't a stab wound and it was like debris that had just fallen and looked like a stab wound. That was unclear. The women and children were found huddled together beneath a fallen concrete wall of a storage room, and most died of skull injuries. It's unclear whether they stayed on purpose or not, and an independent investigation by 2 experts from the University of Maryland's Department of Fire Protection Engineering concluded that the compound residents had sufficient time to escape the fire if they had so desired. However, it was possible, and this is what you see in the show, is
they were stuck?
Yes. It was possible that any exits where the women and children were blocked when the tanks started to collapse the walls. So the walls collapsed and blocked the door to the bunker.
Even if they wanted to leave.
They couldn't.
Oh my fucking God, dude.
Mount Carmel Center was burned entirely to the ground. Flat, gone. There was nothing left. And 2 weeks later, whatever pieces were left were bulldozed over. Byron Sage said in an interview, I ended up reviewing all the audio tapes that our concealment devices recorded on April 19th. And there are 47 times when the Davidians mentioned spreading fuel. What? Do you have more fuel? I need some Coleman over here, things like that. He said, now we don't hear those tapes in real time. If we had, I'm confident we would have changed course. Right after Steve hung up on me on the 19th, there was a clear order, spread the fuel. The last recording on that mic is also, he said, I'm convinced that Steve says start the fires. He said, this is not us trying to make us some story. These are actual audio tapes of Davidians inside the compound. So that was a really big thing. There are audio recordings allegedly of the Davidians from inside various spots in the compound discussing starting possible fires.
But, oh my gosh.
There's also alleged evidence. They said in the wreckage they found fuel canisters with knife holes in them to release the fuel. Whether they were deliberate knife marks or if they were punctured by something else, we'll never know. I mean, you can't really prove they cut it open when you were also throwing a bunch of shit in there. All we know is that the FBI is certain and claims they have direct evidence that the fires inside were started deliberately, and we have 9 surviving Branch Davidians who say that that is not at all what happened. They did not start these fires deliberately. They didn't start them at all. and only 9 people made it out of Mount Carmel Center. Every child and woman left in there died. And that's the end of part 2.
Jesus Christ. This is... I cannot...
Crazy.
I honestly... I have to process. Like, I can't.
Now you understand why people feel bad for them. Part 3 is kind of short, so...
Good, because I'm going to have a lot I have to process out loud. Because I am floored. I am so floored. And my stomach hurts. I'm not a fan of this, actually.
No, isn't it crazy? I didn't know this.
I thought this was a totally different thing.
No.
I thought this was like a psychotic group of like Manson-type followers.
No.
This was an organized religion.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I can't see how anyone wouldn't sympathize with them, honestly.
I know. That's how I feel. The show is really good. The show is great.
I don't think I want to look more into this. I'm like actually upset by this. So we can end this now and go to part 3 because I need to know the aftermath. And
all right, process all this. We'll see.
Then
you
I'll
next
give you
week.
my thoughts and feelings because I have many.
Unless you're on the Patreon, then you can listen to part 3 right now.
Oh my God! Don't listen to this all in one.
I know.
I wish I didn't have to.
I know. This is best cut up in chunks. Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at AlmostPod. If you want an additional episode every week, you can find us at Patreon at AlmostPod.
If you have a case you want us to cover, throw it in a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find merch and all other information at bitchpackmedia.com. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.